What's up? This is Jonathan Smith, your host here at Shooting the Schmidt. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video. You can just look at the shirt. You know what we're talking about today. We're talking about more March Madness. We're going to work through the Sweet 16 and the brackets and everything like that. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So I have my phone here to reference the bracket. Take it off the charger. That would probably help me out just a little bit. Oh, look at the tricep. Anyway, so we're going to start in the South with, we'll start at the top. Alabama hands it to Maryland. Alabama, they've looked better than anybody this whole tournament. They defended it at a high level, and they've scored. I mean, they put up 96 against Texas A&M, Corpus Christi. And then the turnaround, they beat Maryland 73-51. Really struggled to get it going in the first half. But Javon Quinterly, when he's playing well, I just don't know who you're going to really find to beat this Alabama team. They're just loaded. They've got bigs. They can shoot the basketball. They look really good. But if there's any team who can stop them, San Diego State, who's playing some of the best defense in the tournament, right? I mean, they hold Furman to 52. This is what this team does. They play defense at a high level. The question is, how much are they going to be able to score against Alabama? But I really like the San Diego State team. But Alabama, man, they're going to be tough. I'll make my picks here at the end. Creighton is set to take on Princeton. Princeton, coming out of nowhere, 3 straight years now where we've had a 15 seed make the Sweet 16, St. Peter's last year, and Oral Roberts the year before. 3 straight years we've had a 15 seed make the Sweet 16. That doesn't happen. That's wild. Right, so Princeton is the 15 seed this year who's made the run. They're set to take on Creighton, who had super high hopes coming into the season that, they were really banged up. They're finally healthy, and we're seeing just how good this Creighton team is now that they actually have all their guys. So really like this Creighton team. Princeton they've shocked the world. They put up 78 on a good defensive team in Missouri. Really impressive just seeing what all they're doing. FAU beats FDU. That game was crazy. That game was back and forth there for a bit. FAU's talent though, those final 2 minutes just really kind of took over. FDU missed some tough shots, and that was kind of that. No surprise there. Tennessee beats Duke, which was a surprise. Duke came in as hot as anybody in the country. And that Tennessee defense, they defended at a high level. They don't have their starting point guard, Ziegler, however you say it, obviously with the torn ACL. But Vescovi's done a really good job of initiating offense for them. They've been tough, man. They've defended at a high level. And when you defend like Tennessee does, you can beat anybody. Moving on, Kansas State beats Kentucky. That game was really tough. I thought Kentucky was going to pull that one out. But Kansas State, man, they are just, they're so tough. And they've just come out of absolutely nowhere. And they're so much fun to watch. They beat Kentucky 75-69 to move on. Michigan State upsets Marquette. Izzo just owns the month of March, okay? When we talk about good coaches in March, we never talk about Tom Izzo. Or, correction, we don't talk about Tom Izzo as much as we should. We definitely bring him up. We definitely bring up the legacy that he has created at Michigan State. But we don't talk about him enough. Because he does this every year. If he gets into March, it just feels like he's going to make the Sweet 16. That's just the kind of coach that he is. They beat Marquette, and they move on. They're set to take on Kansas State. That game's going to be great. Houston looked really, like they were on the ropes there in the first half, right? They go at the end of the first half, they're down by 10, and then in the second half, they just Auburn. Did Auburn even score in the second half? I mean, Houston defensively just really locked them up, and that is their calling card. That's what they do. They play defense at a high level. Moving on, Miami beats IU. They just turned it on at the end, man. They can shoot it. They've got guards who can really play. The Wong guy, the ACC Player of the Year. Guy's an absolute bucket, can get a shot whenever he wants. And when you have a guy like that, you think back to Kemba Walker back in 2014 when UConn won it. Wong is a guy who can do that, who can have these 4 or 5 minute stretches where he can just carry an offense. And that 4 or 5 minutes is the difference in the game. That's the kind of guy that he is. So Miami moves on after beating Indiana. Xavier beats Pitt. Pitt finally, I don't know how Pitt won. I don't know how Pitt won a game, honestly, because their team completely reliant on shooting the three. And, in one game, they didn't break 60. And in the other game, I think they scored 60 in their playing game against Mississippi State. So I don't know how they won 2 games, but Xavier's offense just kind of overpowered them. Texas wins a close one against Penn State. That Texas defense is really good, and they've got just enough offensively that teams like Penn State who can really score it, they're able to kind of stay with throughout the course of a game. Arkansas upsets Kansas. I'm not going to bore y'all too long, but the Muss Bus is rolling. The Muss Bus is rolling. That's all I'm going to say there. Honestly, if Bill Self coaches this game, Kansas probably wins. He's worth at least 2 points. I can tell you that right now. But at the same time, you gotta tip your cap. Devontae Davis, Devo of Arkansas, played at a high level, man. Scored 21 points in the second half. Really got it going when he needed to. He fouls out. Ricky Council then steps up, scores 7 points in the final 2 minutes. Some of those were free throws, yes. Jordan Walsh plays an incredible game. Fantastic on defense. Is the reason why Council got the offensive rebound after a missed free throw late. Jordan Walsh was awesome. Hit a big go-ahead three. He is the unsung hero of that Arkansas game. UConn hands it to St. Mary's. St. Mary's just doesn't have enough offensively to hang with the premier teams in the country. Gonzaga wins a nail-biter against TCU. Won't lie to you, fell asleep in the middle of it. Hey, I get up really early for work. I missed it. I'm sorry. Drew Timme, though, from my understanding, just kind of took over late. And look, Drew Timme isn't a guard, but anytime your best player is a senior who's played in multiple marches and expects to win, that is a huge advantage that Gonzaga definitely has over a group like TCU. And then finally, UCLA outlasts Northwestern to move on. Now let's actually preview these games. Alabama's playing San Diego State, and Alabama's they've looked better than anybody. As much as I hate to say it, they shoot the ball at a high level. They can defend. They are tall. They're long. They're athletic. 1 through the 5. They've got bigs who come in off the bench and can score. I mean, they have so many guys who can play. I mean, there's so much depth on this Alabama roster. It's really hard to not like them. And as I've said, I think they've looked better than anybody so far. And then they're playing the San Diego State team who has experienced guards. Their young guys are juniors. It is a team full of juniors and seniors. And it's really hard to pick against that in March. But the thing with San Diego State, they don't have any NBA talent, whereas Alabama has it all over their, I wouldn't say all over their roster, but they've got a few guys who are going to have a chance to play in the NBA. Obviously, Brandon Miller's the lead of that. Could potentially, is probably going to be a top 5 pick. I mean, the guy can shoot, very patient offensively, can get his own shot, is willing to get his teammates involved. I mean, this Alabama team, there's so much talent that I do think that they beat San Diego State. But at this point, anybody can beat anybody. Anybody can beat anybody. So I'm going to say Alabama to beat San Diego State. Creighton set to take on Princeton. Princeton's run ends here. At some point, the lack of talent shows up. And I think it'll show up in this one. Creighton is one of the most talented teams in the country. Ignore the 6 by their name. Because whether they play San Diego State or Alabama, they're going to give them all they can handle. This Creighton team can absolutely play. So I'll take Creighton there. We'll keep that one pretty short. FAU plays Tennessee. FAU is tough. They've got guards who can play. They turn the ball over a bit much against FDU, but that's kind of what FDU does to people. They speed you up. So I don't think the turnovers will be as big of a deal, but the defensive pressure is going to be at a very similar level as to what it was when they played FDU. The question is, I just feel like at some point, Tennessee not having it's not Ziegler. I got to look up his name before I sound stupid and I call him by the wrong name the entire game. But Tennessee defensively, as I said earlier, they are more than good enough to beat anybody just because of how well they play defense. And the offense isn't overly reliant on one player, which is, I think, both a strength and a weakness. Right? Yeah. Oh, it is Ziegler. Look at me. I know my stuff. I just gotta have more confidence in myself, I guess. But as I was saying, when your offense isn't overly dependent on one person, I think it's both a strength and a weakness, right? Because you're not overly dependent on one person, the defense isn't keying on a specific player. But at the same time, you don't have a guy where you can be like, hey, man, go get a bucket for me. They don't have that. And that is a concern whenever you play against teams as you get deeper into the tournament, because usually the defense is better and things of that nature. So, yeah, I am going to take Tennessee just because I like their defense. I like their athletes. I think especially SEC teams, because the SEC is one of the tallest, longest, and most athletic conferences in college basketball. So when they play against teams from like Conference USA, like FAU, I think the athleticism is just overwhelming, and it really wears on teams for 40 minutes. So because of that, I'm going to take Tennessee to move on to the Elite Eight. Kansas State plays Michigan State, and this Kansas State team's really good. I don't know how you don't like them. They can do a lot of different things offensively. They're really tough defensively, as we saw when they played against Kentucky. I mean, this is a really, really good unit taking on a team in Michigan State who, it's Izzo. Like, it's really hard for me to pick against Tom Izzo in the month of March. And I'm very intrigued to see where this game goes. Michigan State is surprisingly favored by 2 points. Like that was a real surprise for me whenever this came out. And obviously, part of that is Tyson Walker. He's having a really good year, averaging about 15 points a game. But Keontae Johnson for Kansas State is also having a great year as well. Like, there's so many dudes in this game who have transferred in and transferred out and things of that nature. This is the game that I really want to see. I think this has the potential to be the best game of the Sweet 16 because there's a lot of experience on the floor as well. Obviously, Kansas State has the Knoll guy as well, 5'8" point guard, throwing all sorts of dimes. Love his game. That's another guy who's only 5'8" and likes to play ball. How can you not like him, right? So, really like this Kansas State team and Michigan State, both of these teams. Really like this matchup. I'm going to take Michigan State. It's Tom Izzo. I'm not picking against him, against a team in Kansas State who hasn't had a ton of March success. It's really that simple for me. So I'm going to take Michigan State to move on to the Elite Eight. Houston plays Miami, and this is such an interesting matchup because this Houston team plays defense at just as well as anybody in the country. They're arguably the best defensive team in the country. And Miami's got these guards who can score. Like, Miami has some of the best scoring guards in all college basketball. They can shoot, they can drive. Obviously, the Wong guy is incredible, but Houston has Sasser, right? A guy who's going to get drafted really high this year, a guy who can go score. Was really efficient, in their game against Auburn. Finished with 21, 7 of 14 shooting. So Houston has a guy who can go bucket for bucket with Wong if need be, but the consistency of Miami's offense it's been really up and down kind of throughout the year. That's why they're a 5 seed as opposed to being higher, because the offense just hasn't been there night in and night out. But man, they look really good, and I really want to take them because I do think that Houston's lack of offense will eventually come back to haunt them. And my thing is, if it's not against Miami, then I don't know who it's going to be against. I'm going to take Miami. I'm going to take Miami to beat Houston. And then Xavier plays Texas. I'm going to take Texas. Texas is playing as well as anybody. The defense is at a high level. They're scoring, at a high level as well. I really do like this Texas team. And then moving on, Arkansas is set to take on UConn. This one's so tough. Eric Musselman, undefeated in games where he has 5 or more days to prep. Obviously, he has that here as they all travel out to Las Vegas. But this UConn team is absolutely loaded with talent. UConn's favored by 3.5. But I'm gonna take Arkansas, and I know I'm wearing this, and I know it comes back to Jonathan, bias. You're an Arkansas fan, of course you're gonna take them to win. But Musselman doesn't lose when he has a lot of time to prep. He does he literally does not. He's never lost a game where he has 5 or more days to prepare. Okay, this is also a UConn team who hasn't been here before, right? And there's multiple guys on this Arkansas roster who've played in Sweet 16s and have played in Elite 8s. And that is a big deal. It is a big deal. And so because of the experience and Eric Musselman, who wins in March as well as anybody, I'm going to take Arkansas to win. And then moving on, Gonzaga plays UCLA. And this is such a good matchup. It's such a good matchup. I'm going to take UCLA. I like the experience that they have at the guard spot between Tiger Campbell and Pac-12 Player of the Year, Yaquez, or however you say it. You guys know who I'm talking about. I'm going to take them to win just because they have guards who have played in the Final Four before, and they're uber talented, right? Like they've got freshmen who can play as well, and so they're big at the guard spot too, outside of Tiger Campbell, which I kind of like. I like teams in March who have big guards. I think that's a trend that is holding steady. When we look at a lot of these teams, their guards just kind of tend to be bigger. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to take. So, UCLA and Arkansas will play in my Elite Eight in the West. Miami will play Texas in the Midwest. Michigan State will play Tennessee in the East. And Creighton will play Alabama in the South. Only one number one seed will make it to the Elite Eight. So that's going to do it here at Shooting the Schmidt. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. I appreciate all the support. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification button so you don't miss any videos. My goal is to do one a day, just talking about whatever is going on in the sports world, hoping to keep you up to date so that when you go to work tomorrow, you can talk to your buddies and have a legit take to give them. So once again, thank you all so much for listening. I'll be back again tomorrow with another video.